Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of the show. I have been waiting for this one it's not 2 years. It's probably even longer than that. Right out of the gates, 39% more freshman applications, and international student registrations are just skyrocketing. A 15-year high retention rate, 0 layoffs, all starting in the middle of a pandemic. I have to ask this wonderful human in front of me right here today, how?
I mean, the word that comes to mind is teamwork. I showed up here at Macalester College in St. Paul on June 1st of 2020 to
Right.
begin my first presidency. And if you think back to that time, there was a lot going on, right? It was the crisis phase of the COVID pandemic. It was just a few days after George Floyd had been murdered, just miles from the campus. The Twin Cities were on fire.
On fire, literally on fire.
Literally. And I arrived not knowing how to be a president at a small liberal arts college and not knowing how to navigate a lethal global pandemic. But I inherited a fantastic team, and we assembled ourselves very quickly to operate kind of like a crisis management center. Jokingly now in retrospect, I can say, wow, that wasn't a presidency. That was like a FEMA emergency disaster coordinator job or something like that. But at the time, every decision felt life or death.
Right.
Some of them literally were. We were making decisions about whether to test for COVID, whether to require masks, whether to teach in person or not, whether we could have students living in the dormitories or not. Congregant housing was very tricky to operate, whether we could allow students to play sports. I mean, every day we had a million decisions to make. And the team just really pulled together, and each person brought their strengths and talents, and we got through it. And I feel like because we did, and as you said, we got through it without laying anyone off.
Right.
We got through it while still having high retention rates, and applications just keep going up and up and up. I think we built on that initial success of surviving those crises and have just continued to push ourselves to achieve higher levels of service to our students. But, in addition to that, really service to the whole higher ed or post-secondary education sector.
Right. Ladies
in
and
ways that are
gentlemen,
really
let me
motivating.
pop in here for the three people who don't know who I'm talking to, because we didn't do a proper introduction. This is Dr. Suzanne Rivera, president of Macalester College in St. Paul. So we just jumped right into it. Most rookie presidents are going to spend, year one just finding the right offices, the
Yeah.
faculty lounge. You spent years literally running triage on a pandemic, on a national reckoning at the very same time. That's either the worst timing in the history of higher ed or the best free stress test anyone's ever gotten, right, in the job. So one, I want to say congratulations. And two, I want to just ask, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, I get that we are operating in conditions of extreme difficulty, lots of turbulence, but I'm as motivated now as ever about the importance of our mission, not just to educate students, but to tend to our fragile democracy, to contribute to civic prosperity. I think it's a really exciting time to be in higher ed. There are a lot of challenges in front of us, but also a lot of really talented, motivated people working on those challenges. And I get up excited every day to solve those problems.
I love it. I love it. And most presidents are clawing their way up through like the provost chain, the dean chain, but yeah, bioethics and kind of a social worker's training.
Mhm.
How do you like incorporate that into the day and the life of a president on a major college campus?
It's sort of funny. When I applied for the job, I think having worked as a bioethicist at a medical school might originally have felt like not a good match for leading a small liberal arts college. Like, what are we going to do with that set of skills? As it turned out, leading during a global pandemic, having those bioethics frameworks,
Yeah.
having that training to do triage, ethical triage, uh, turned out to be a little bit of a superpower that really helped, because I had rubrics at my disposal for thinking about harm minimization, and for thinking about trade-offs that actually were very instructive. So, um, it's also true that my undergraduate experience was at a liberal arts focused institution, and so in many ways, coming to Macalester was like coming home intellectually for me. It really wasn't a stretch. I did take a non-traditional path to the presidency. I didn't go straight from undergrad to PhD and then professor, chair, dean, provost, president. I think my path could not be easily replicated. There are a
Right.
lot of it's a very crooked path, and one that involves serendipity. It involves other people seeing talent in me that I, you know, hadn't recognized in myself, or making opportunities available to me before I felt like I was ready for them. And I'm super grateful for those interventions. But I think being a non-traditional president helps me in a lot of ways, because I actually was staff first in higher education before I became a faculty member later in
It's
my
so
career.
important. You never forget where you came from.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I've been a student, I've been a staff, I've been a faculty, I've been a parent of college students, uh, and I've been an administrator, and now a president. And an alum. I'm a very involved alum, so I feel like I understand a little piece of each of the constituencies of a higher ed institution.
Back to that whole non-traditional thing, and since 2020, you've told your students that they can come to you personally for
Mhm.
help, maybe even covering bail if they've been arrested in a protest, perhaps.
Mhm.
Never have I ever.
Mm.
What traditional president instinct told you maybe not to do that?
Well, look, I took
I
plenty of
If
heat
you were
for
going
having
through the
offered that,
traditional track, right?
Um, I was myself a student activist as an undergrad, and I totally see the value in students learning how to express themselves and use their voices to make positive change. And when I made that offer, it was totally, it was from the heart, because I sympathized with students who were being arrested even when they were just peacefully expressing themselves. And let's remember, that was at the height of COVID. I was worried about their safety. I was
Mhm.
worried about them being put in a holding pen with actual violent criminals and maybe contracting COVID over a weekend in there. So I
That's
also
important context,
it
folks.
is. I feel a real in loco parentis kind of responsibility to our students for their safety and well-being. And at that time, I worried that any student who couldn't afford to bail themselves out might be at great risk. So I said, I did put out this offer that if anyone couldn't bail themselves out, we would do that so that they could get out of jail and then await their arraignment. There was a firestorm of backlash about that. Um, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about social media and how it can sort of go off the rails.
Absolutely.
I also learned that a lot of people who have nothing to do with Macalester pay attention to what we say and what we're doing here, and have
Noise.
opinions about how we should be running this institution. But at the core, that decision came from caring about members of our community.
I've never heard a college president use a term that I know it's alive and well in many other sectors within education, but it tends to get lost the further you go up in the echelon in Loco Parentis.
Hmm.
That duty of care for our students
Hmm.
at the moral core. Before you had this title, who said something? Who saw something in you, right? That just proved all of this to be right. Who was that person that you can point to say that was my significant life connection?
Oh, there have been so many. It's really hard to narrow it to one. I'll say there was a turning point in my career that I can talk to. Um, at one point, I had the incredible privilege of reporting directly to a guy named Al Gilman. He was literally a Nobel laureate, one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Um, he took an interest in me and in my success, and he took me aside one day and said, "Listen, you're doing a great job, but I can never promote you or give you more responsibility than you have now unless you go back and get another degree. You need an MD or a PhD for me to give you any more responsibility here. I was working at a medical school in Dallas at the time. And I think he knew me and my personality well enough to know I would accept that as kind of a personal
A little
challenge.
challenge, yeah.
But I was 35 at the time. I had 2 elementary school age kids and I was working full time, and I went and enrolled in night school, and I kept working full time, and I got my PhD at night. And the day I graduated, or the day after I graduated, he promoted me and insisted that I accept a faculty appointment also on top of my administrative duties, because he could see that there was a scholar in me too, not
Mm.
only an administrator, but also someone who um, wanted to make intellectual contributions to a field, and he really made that possible for me. So I just offer that as one example of where somebody can see something in you even before you see it in yourself. And if they push open a door of opportunity, you need to be ready to walk through and say, yes, you can't let your fear or insecurity hold you back.
Wow, how compelling. How
Mm,
compelling. And somebody that not only saw that bright light, but pursued it and was willing to almost apprentice that, to say, here's what you must do. And
totally.
the action, not just agreeing that you had talent, but the action to come alongside to see you. Because sometimes we get stuck on our own doom loops of, I'm not quite sure, because of our role models growing up, our gender, our
Mhm.
socioeconomic. But sometimes we need to just lean on the hope and just the strength of other people. And yeah, there's an unpaid advertisement for, say his name again,
Al Gilman.
Al Gilman. Thank you. We
Yeah.
salute Al
He's no
Gilman.
longer with us, but I
Mm.
think about him all the time. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude.
So let's shift gears. You're mid campaign right now on a quarter billion
Billion
dollars
with a B, yep.
with a
Mhm.
B. We're talking, while promising free tuition, right, to every qualified family member, student that's coming to your campus. That alone covers about 1 in 10 students in this year's incoming class. That's amazing. Convince me that you're not just giving money away faster than you're maybe raising it.
Well, the Macalester tuition promise is that any student who's admitted whose annual family income is $100,000 or less will guarantee free tuition. And to be perfectly honest with you, that's not really a shift in our practices. It's really more a shift in how transparent we're willing to be about those
Mm.
practices.
It's always been there.
It's always been there, which is to say that even before we made that announcement, if a student applied to MAC and got in, and when they completed the FAFSA, they indicated that their family income was $100,000 or less, they already were qualifying for free tuition. But here's the problem we discovered. Lots of talented students from lower resource homes weren't even applying to Macalester because they imagined it was out of reach. They
Right.
thought, oh, it's a private institution. It must be an elitist kind of place. I'm not even going to try to apply, which meant they didn't get the chance to discover that we would have covered their tuition for free. So by announcing this Macalester tuition promise, we're not changing who we're giving money to or how people qualify for that tuition aid. But what we're doing is being much more upfront, much more transparent and straightforward so that it'll be obvious who qualifies for it. And of course, lots of other students get aid too. About 65% of our students get need-based aid. Another 20% or so get merit awards.
Mhm.
So the majority of our students are getting financial assistance to attend, and that's possible mostly because of the generosity of our alumni who give philanthropically.
So good. So good. Thank
Mhm,
you in advance to all
mhm,
of this promise that will come true. You gotta take me back a little bit. Take me back to Jackson Heights,
mhm,
a family on food stamps,
mhm,
a 4'11" point guard starting varsity.
mm.
Who was in your corner?
Well, my mom for sure. I I think the scrappiness I get is earned from being the oldest kid in an immigrant family,
Mm.
low income, in a very chaotic and precarious situation. There was just a lot of unpredictability, and I took on a lot of responsibility at a young age. And it made me fiercely independent. It made me self sufficient and really determined to overcome obstacles. I think you see that in my interest in sports. I mean, I'm a very competitive person. And even though I don't play on a team anymore, I did even as an adult. My husband and I played together on a co-ed indoor soccer team for years. And I coached my daughter's soccer team for a while, and I continue to be a sports nut, and I love following all the Macalester teams. But I bring that sense of
Hey, friends, quick question before we get back to it. I know that you have talented people on your leadership team, but is your team actually performing to its full potential? Most aren't, and most don't know why. The Team Intelligence Assessment is a solution to change that. Find out where your team stands at higherperformancegroup.com. Go to find your starting point to get started today, or click the QR code in the screen right here. All right, back to the show.
Wanting to overcome obstacles to my work as a leader too. And I very much bring a sense of esprit de corps or teamwork to the president's cabinet too. I really treat that team like a problem-solving team. I tell them all the time, I think of them like the Avengers, like each of them brings a different superpower, and we make better decisions together when we do them as a group than I could possibly make on my own. But I have really high standards. I set the bar high because I feel like we have an incredible challenge ahead of us to serve our talented students as best as we can, and then send them off into the world, into the workforce, into their communities, to make things better. And that's a very motivating goal, but it means we have to work really, really hard to get there.
My mind is already searching for the bold print title of this particular interview, and Scrappy has got to be a word that is found in there someplace. But there's also that Pygmalion effect that says, I'm here so everybody else can rise to my expectations. I mean, that's what people do. Good, solid, secure leaders, right? Model that way for others to follow. Let's talk about your international students. About a third of your student base comes from it's been a tough year.
It has been a tough year. It's been a tough few years. So around 20% come from outside the U.S., and then we have maybe another 10 or 15% who have dual citizenship, or who went to high school outside the U.S. But are U.S. citizens. And the college has a long-standing commitment to global citizenship and internationalism. You may know that former Secretary of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, was one of our most illustrious alumni, and we have flown the United Nations flag on campus for decades.
So good.
So it's a really important piece of our institutional identity. And we also have about 60 or 65% of our domestic students who do study away. So there's a lot of coming and going, and that's all by design. If you ask any Macalester student what a Mac education is for, almost without pause or hesitation, they'll say to create a more just and peaceful world. And I'm really proud of that. I mean, not every college or university takes that on as their mission or their purpose. To do that, to bring in international students and make it possible for them to thrive here, requires us to pay attention to a whole host of concerns that other colleges and universities might not need to worry about. Recently, that has included changes in federal policy that have made it much harder for non-U.S. students to attend U.S. schools, and immigration enforcement activities, specifically in the Twin Cities during Operation Metro Surge, which made it hard to feel safe here. I mean, quite literally, our campus felt at risk of harm, and it was really traumatic. The winter was really traumatic for those of us who were trying to protect and care for international students or other students afraid of being mistaken for international students.
Yeah, what does that escort service or an immigration response guidance page actually do for a scared, right, 18-year-old at 8 a.m?
Yeah, we tried really hard to take whatever steps we could within the authority we had to make it safer. So we, for example, put our buildings on key card access only, so that unauthorized law enforcement couldn't be entering our buildings. We put signage up on all our parking lots saying only authorized vehicles were welcome. We organized ourselves. When students were coming back from the winter break, we knew that there was a lot of enforcement activity happening in the Uber Lyft lot at MSP Airport, and
Mm.
students were going to be getting off planes and maybe afraid to get a ride to campus. So we used our own campus vans, and we asked for volunteers from our faculty and staff to essentially create a shuttle service for our students, just going all day back and forth between MSP and Macalester. And we had so many volunteers. We had more volunteers than we had shifts available, and hundreds of students took us up on that offer to get a free ride back to campus in a safe way so they wouldn't have to go to the Uber lot. We also did things like we told our international students before the winter break, if any of you are too afraid to go home because you're worried you won't be able to get back in the country, you can stay for free over the winter break and we'll provide you a meal plan, which of course required us to have employees who normally would take a break stay and work to keep them safe. So we took all sorts of steps that a college wouldn't normally have to
Right.
in order to make them feel supported and welcome. And even this summer, we have a lot of international students who elected to stay for the same reason, and we're taking really good care of them.
I mean, privilege comes to mind. Many leaders in your chair might say, "This is the time that I take my 2 week to Europe vacation." Right? The privilege that we have, right? Many of us have to just disappear during times of crisis because I
Mhm.
feel like I just need a little break. But you chose to stay because of, I'm going to twist it, because of the privilege of the position that you have leading this amazing, group of students and your staff and your and beautiful community. If you haven't been to this campus, folks, you got to check it out. That pain, the struggle, all the challenges, I see it on your face, Sue. It is a privilege. It is a
It
privilege
is
that
a
you
privilege, and let's be clear. I'm not sitting here feeling sorry for myself. I did get over to Europe for a week this summer, so
have. I didn't do any research
I
on
don't.
this.
I'm not gunning for sainthood here. What I will say is that Macalester is in the very fortunate position to be standing on solid financial ground at a time when a lot of small liberal arts colleges are struggling. Our applications are up. Our endowment is solid. We are right now in the middle of what is turning out to be a very successful fundraising campaign, and I'm grateful for all of that. At the same time, with that privilege comes the responsibility to do everything we can to take the best care of members of our community. And I don't just mean our campus community. I mean, when Operation Metro Surge was at its peak here, it was Macalester students, faculty, and staff were on the front lines, and alumni at the front lines of many of those mutual aid efforts, uh, driving people to their workplaces, bringing meals to folks who were afraid to leave their homes to go food shopping. We were in the
Mm,
middle of all of that. And I think every member of this community recognizes that with the privilege of being at a place like this comes a moral obligation
yes.
to take care of our neighbors, to be a good neighbor here in St. Paul, and to take care of others, not just people we know and care about, perfect strangers who needed us at that time.
I don't have to go and find your mission statement because I can feel it right now.
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
feel it right now. We're going to shift to a little different tempo and tone right now. We're going
Okay.
to shift to the lightning round. All of the just the superhero, just the ethic, moral imperative that you have. There's boots that are still solidly connected to the ground here. So we're going to see how real human you are. So, is there a quote that you live by? Something that comes to mind?
Yeah. This is Muhammad Ali said, impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. And it's something I remind myself about all the time. When people say to me, we can't do that, I always say, well, we could if what? Like, what would it take for us to be able to do that? And I find that really motivating.
Love the reframe there. How about worst advice, and then we'll say best advice in leading people you ever have received?
Um, well, they're two sides of the same coin. I think the the worst advice in leading people is to just tell people what to do that you know best. I mean, I feel like that's not what a leader is. A leader is somebody who can articulate a vision that other people want to follow, but mostly what you're doing is getting rid of potholes or speed bumps, whichever metaphor you like better, to let other people flourish. So the best advice is to put the very smartest, most talented people around you and let them do their thing, as
Mm.
opposed to making yourself the centerpiece.
I smell empowerment there. I smell
Mhm.
empowerment.
Mhm.
Do you have any unpopular opinions that you hold that you're just willing to you just stand on whatever mountain and support?
Yeah, my kids would tell you that we drilled this into them from the time they were little. My most unpopular opinion is always do more than the minimum. Meaning, like, if somebody asks you to do something 2 times, do it 3 times. If something requires half an hour of reading, do 35 minutes of reading. I have yet to see a situation where doing more than what was asked of you wasn't a good option. And the reason I say I think that's an unpopular view is that there's a lot of attention being paid right now to drawing boundaries and self-care and work-life balance and making sure you take care of yourself. And while I totally understand that rest is necessary, and that people are entitled to it, in my own life, what I have learned is that when I go above and beyond, or I do more than the minimum required for a given situation, I have never regretted it.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's a return on that investment that returns back to you in terms of just your ability to thrive through difficult situations. We all have family soundtracks, but doing more than is expected. I love that family soundtrack.
Mhm.
How about something that you've changed your mind about recently
Um,
or ever?
yeah, I'm not sure about recently. One thing that jumps to mind that's work related, a little story I can tell you is that my team during the crisis phase of COVID, my team came to me to say, this idea you have about putting a bunch of students in a hotel is just a terrible idea. We were trying to figure out how to bring more students to campus, and we thought, well, why don't we just pay the Drury Hotel downtown and turn it into like a quarantine space, and we'll bus students back and forth. I mean, I was just trying to think of anything. What about a cruise ship? Can we park something on the river here and have that as like, what can we do? Um, and it was very humbling for my team to come to me and say, We know you think this is a great idea, but it stinks. And here are all the reasons why." And I think about that a lot. This comes back to what I was saying before about feeling 100% sure that we come up with better decisions as a group than anything I could do by myself.
Yeah, the Google research backs it up. If your VPs can speak up to you and you listen, that's a sign of a pretty decent culture. So I'm guessing there was not a cruise ship that was parked on the Mississippi.
No, I thought about it for a minute.
How about a decision that you'd make 10 times over in your career, Susan?
Uh, well, this might sound unconventional for the answer, but I'm going to say marrying my spouse. No, why is that a career decision? Hands down, marrying him is the best decision I ever made, and probably the most important for my career as well as for my life. Because what
Mm.
I tell young people all the time is that you should choose a partner who encourages your dreams. If you pick the right person, then you can pursue whatever your goals are with regard to your career. And there's no way I would be sitting in this chair now if I hadn't chosen a life partner who supported me in taking risks, in my sense of ambition and my sense of drive and the things I wanted to accomplish. So I would make that decision 10 times over.
Another official salute. If you weren't a college president, what would you be doing?
Ooh, um, there are a lot of things that would be fun. I don't know. I've always kind of had a fantasy about being an ambassador and representing the United States abroad. Um, I already told you I love sports. I think commissioner of the WNBA would be super
Oh,
fun,
so fun.
or maybe running the Olympics or something like that. I don't know. Something related to athletics would be great. Generally speaking, I like anything that has to do with representing a mission.
Mm. All right, local events. Are we doing state fair? Or are we doing grand old days? Where would we find you?
Well, both and. I marched in the Grand Old Day Parade. I love doing that. My husband's a bagpiper, so he was with the bagpipers right behind us, and I was with the mascot, and
Wait,
I
wait,
look
wait, wait,
forward to that
wait,
every
wait.
year.
Was that your unfair advantage when applying for that position?
No, he learned the bagpipes after we moved here.
After.
This is an example of what a dedicated spouse looks
Oh
like,
my goodness.
actually. No, he learned
Yeah,
it
that's a
after
real
we
easy instrument to pick up and not annoy your neighbors while
It's
practicing.
a really tough instrument to pick up. I have huge admiration for him and learning how to do that.
I love it.
I also will be going to the state fair. Can't miss that.
So, is there a word or a short phrase that you would say for Mac's future?
Brighter. It is the title of our campaign, but that's not a coincidence. We see a lot of potential on the horizon, while other institutions are operating from a position of fear or worry. We are very bullish on the future of Macalester. We feel like we have a bright future, and we're excited about everything our students can accomplish to go out and create a more just and peaceful world.
Mm. Ladies and gentlemen, the Scrappy, the
Mhm.
Bullish. To all of you out there, I think the lesson is that maybe 2020 or maybe even 2026, bringing it a little closer to home, they weren't your worst possible years to lead. It's that mindset, right? That says, what can we learn from this, and how can we build, the character and the resolve. So I think it's more about the question whether your timing is bad. It's whether you're building the kind of place that people trust when it is, right?
It probably would be fun to lead in peacetime, but we don't get to always choose our circumstances. And so, given the hand I've been dealt here, what I feel really fortunate about is, despite all the turbulence in the world, to be doing this job at this place right now feels like exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I think 2026-27, this academic year, you're going to have a bit of a tailwind. I profile people and systems for a living, and I smell very, very good things coming your way. If people want to learn more about you, your institution, where would you drive them to?
Come look at our website, macalester.edu, or follow me on Instagram at Macalester Prez, or find me on LinkedIn, Suzanne M. Rivera.
She's a street fighter, folks. You can model that way as well. Thanks for joining us. Peace. Keep your dukes up.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.